Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining today's Tremco Talks webinar educational series. Today's topic is 2021 Roofing Industry Insights for the New Normal of Commercial Roofing. Our very special host for today's webinar is Heidi J. Ellsworth, who is the president of Roofers Coffee Shop and is the founder of National Women in Roofing. We invited Heidi back to share her roofing insights for 2020 and 2021 commercial roofing trends. Today, she will focus on COVID, technology, and performance roofing influences. She will also share insights from the roofing industry data gathered from Roofers Coffee Shop in 2020. Heidi will touch upon important topics affecting today's roofing industry, such as construction labor shortages, material allocations, and the overall need for more efficient roofing systems. Lastly, she'll review initiatives for recruiting more diversity while also sharing new technologies that reduce general labor requirements on the roof. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate in today's event. You've joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information it will be displayed. You are going to have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your question into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send your question over at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. There's also a handout on your control panel that you can download, 2021 Roofing Insights Infographic. Please feel free to download it, and it's going to include some interesting stats about the current challenges in the roofing industry today. Now, I am pleased to present our Tremco Talks presenter, Heidi Ellsworth.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here today. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, as you've heard, and I am thrilled to be a part of this Tremco Talk. I'm really excited to talk about the 2021 roofing industry insights for the new normal of commercial roofing, but really to kind of look back at 2020 and how we've gotten here and where we're going and what things are really important and what we're seeing in the roofing industry. Again, and you already heard this so eloquently put out there, but I am with Roofers Coffee Shop. It is a website for the roofing industry. It's where we see blogs, articles, data, surveys all year round. And so we kind of live and breathe that roofing world, and I'm really excited to share that with you. I'm also a founder of National Women in Roofing, very active in the diversity move within construction, and a founder of Roofing Technology Think Tank, which is a think tank to bring technology into roofing. So a lot of what I share today will also come from those organizations. But so before we get started, let's go ahead and look and get some of your insights, which always is interesting. So we have a poll that we'll go ahead and start. And the poll is, how did you do in 2020? So we're very interested in how did you do? As kind of an overview, did you do better than 2019? About the same? Did you do a little bit less in 2019, or did you do much worse? We're going to take here about 30 minutes and really interested in hearing what you saw and how that worked for you. What we've seen in Roofers Coffee Shop is actually a roofing industry that has been very busy. Obviously, some downtimes in 2020, but very active, especially on the residential side, but also on the commercial. In fact, I have heard many contractors who have said, wow, I had no idea we would be this busy this year. So we should see the results come up here in just a few seconds, and there they are. And sorry, as I get a little bit closer, but it looks like at 41%, the same as 2019. That's what we've been hearing a lot. And a lot of people thought it would be a lot worse. Now we did have 11% who said it was much worse, 22% that was a little bit less, and 25% that said it was better. So that really works right into what we're seeing. And as we are going through and looking at the construction industry overall. And a lot of what I'm going to share today is overall construction industry, because I think that's important. That's the trends, obviously, by the time that it gets to the roof. And then we'll bring in what we're hearing from the roofing contractors and the roofing community also. But according to Statistica, they are really looking at pretty staying even. And that really goes with the polls that you just said. So when you look at obviously the Great Recession that many of us went through, we were at an all-time low for private construction and public construction spending. But as it grew and got into 2019, we were at a high, a little bit low again, and then right back up October 2020. What we're seeing and what we're hearing is that this is going to be pretty indicative, about the same, if not just a little bit lower into 2021, and we'll get into that. But I always feel that it's important to look at the past and to know where you're at so that you can figure out kind of where you're going. And even though most of you on this call today and on this webinar are most likely commercial, we aren't sure about that, but it looks like most of you are commercially oriented, that what we also have to look at is residential. What is happening on the residential side? Because it has a huge effect on commercial. And we're going to see this a lot in the numbers and the stats as we go through this presentation. But, you know, according to Principia, the building materials and construction industry actually did really well in 2020. 38.1 billion was spent in October 2020 at building and garden and equipment centers. It was huge. We saw so many different people who put together different things for their homes. That's what we saw, that people were at home, remote workers, they wanted to fix up their homes. And we saw this time after time again. 1.55 million housing permits for 2020 compared to 1.5 million in 2019. And you can just review these stats as you're looking at them and realize that 2020 ended up pretty strong, especially residentially. So as we look through that, we have to kind of compare that to, okay, what are the commercial contractors seeing? And according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Commercial Construction Q4 2020 report, they are also looking positive. General contractors are reporting that their backlogs are up. They are looking at from 70 in Q4, from 68 in Q3. This is the average ideal backlog rising. So as we see the backlogs coming, that obviously shines well for roofing down the road. We didn't always hear that in 2020. We were hearing that because of remote working, because of problems with complexes and building spaces, that might really slow down. And they're even still talking about that for 2021. But when you look at contractor confidence, they are seeing increase in backlog, they're seeing an increase in revenue, and they're seeing an increase in new business. That makes a big difference for all of us, because when the contractors are confident, they're the ones on the front line, they're seeing the work coming in, and they're working with all the sub-trades. So as we look forward, we kind of are going, okay, we see some good things happening. We see the nice kind of even flow that I think everybody wants. But how are we going to make all that happen? And one of the big concerns that we have had for a very long time, and we continue to have, is that concern for skilled labor. The skilled labor market, since the Great Recession, we have been losing people, and we have not been bringing new labor in, the new generations. So for every trade, roofing, all the sub-trades, general contractors, you name it, anything in construction, this is one of the biggest concerns. And when you look at it, 83% of contractors reported moderate to high levels of difficulty in finding skilled workers. We're seeing the exact same thing in roofing. In fact, it is an all-out, every association, every group is working on this. And really interesting is, again, looking at that forecasting into 2021, and remember, this is from Q4, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Commercial Construction Report, that 37% feel they're going to employ more people. That's great news. And then 46% are going to keep the same. 12% feel that they may be declining. But the trick is they see the need, they have the backlogs, the revenue, they're looking for that, getting the jobs out there, but are we going to have the skilled labor? And that really is what it comes down to. And we're going to talk a lot about that coming up soon. But before we do, I want to look also at this difference. And this is one of the things that I think is going to be very key to 2021, and what I hear from a lot of contractors in through Roofers Coffee Shop is that residential is growing. And this is from the Association of General Contractors. And they are looking at this and they see residential building and specialty trade contractors have now recouped all the employment losses they incurred because there's work. We were essential workers during COVID. They were continually out there working on the homes, had homeowners who were looking around who wanted to get things fixed. And so we see that the unemployment and getting the labor and the just market overall continues to grow. Non-residential construction employment was 241,000 less in December 2020 than in February 2020. So commercial, and we all understand it, took a hit with companies having to close down, have their workers work remotely, dealing with businesses shutting down, rents, landlords, all of those kind of things. So again, it's going to take a while longer, and we're going to see that probably going into 2021 for commercial to truly recoup. At the same time, when we're talking about employment and skilled labor, since residential didn't really slow down, they're grabbing a lot of that talent and bringing them over to the residential side. So as you really start looking at this, you're going to have to work with the contractors and work with your sub-trades, work with across the board to really understand the effect of COVID and what it is having on them. And when you look again at some of these reports, 83% are experiencing project delays due to COVID-19. And that's what we saw out of that US Chamber report. It is something that no matter where they're working, they're seeing some sort of delays, social distancing, lack of workers, problems with the commercial buildings, nobody there. 68% of contractors are experiencing delays and see them continuing through Q2 2021. So again, this is not going to go away. And what's really interesting is you look at this and you say 64% say worker health and safety remain a top concern. It is, and just came out that what we're seeing is, and you're seeing this on the news, you're seeing it about vaccinations. So as you're looking at how people are accepting vaccinations, construction is one of the lowest acceptance rates. In fact, they have a group that is the fourth, or as construction is the fourth from the bottom of the industry. The only ones who are less hesitant about getting vaccines in the field are retail, transportation, and food and beverage workers, which I think is really going to have an effect. So if you have 47% of the construction employees who are hesitant about having vaccines and about getting vaccinated, now all of a sudden you're going to see potential delays between workers and companies on the job. What are the requirements, the regulations? So that is going to have, at least through 2021, a huge effect on the industry. The other thing is 53% say more project shutdowns and delays are a top concern. Again, that goes back to, are the buildings closed? What's happening? They just don't have the money. Is the business out of business because maybe it's a small business or tenants are not paying? So those are the types of things that are going to happen too. And finally, one of the big topics and what we'll explore further in this presentation is the less availability of building products and increasing in pricing. So we're seeing this across the board, especially in the lumber market, where prices are going up, availability is going down, and it is causing delays in the market. So before we move on to the next topic, what I would like to hear is what you all are seeing. So what do you believe? Do you think it's going to be better than 2020 on the commercial side? So commercial construction in 2021, do you see it as better than 2020, the same as 2020, less than 2020, or much worse than 2020? And we'll give you a few minutes to look through that. I have to tell you, every day this changes. It's so interesting to listen to what's happening out there in the economy, what they're seeing, how companies are dealing with it. Just this morning, as driving in, I was hearing about all the small businesses in New York and how that is changing the profile of New York City, and what's going to be happening. I think as you are all looking at this, it's really interesting to see what you are forecasting into 2021. And we see in this poll that many of you believe that it's going to be the same or better. In fact, across the board, over 80% between those two. That is great. Oh, great news. Thank you for sharing that, because that is exactly what we are kind of seeing too, that there are going to be some potential stumbling blocks, but overall, roofing in 2021 is going to really kind of continue, definitely in residential and pretty much in commercial, to stay right where it is or a little bit better. As you are looking at 2020, and I think it's important that we kind of go back and look at what has kind of brought us here. And one of the areas that I want to point out that I think is very important for anybody, whether you're in roofing, any form of construction, to look at is what the roofing industry did right at the beginning of COVID. There was a coalition put together called Back to Work on America's Roofs. And it was a coalition of associations like National Roofing Contractors Association, ARMA, the Asphalt Association, EPDM, National Women in Roofing, SPRI, the coatings, roof coatings manufacturers. They all came together because they knew that as an industry in roofing, we had to be able to get out in front of the COVID and make sure that we kept taking care of the buildings. We kept taking care of the owners, the building owners and facility managers and homeowners and everybody else out there. So you will see, and if you go out and research this, an amazing collaboration between these associations. But they went out and they very simply said they were going to provide the first line of defense in protecting homes and businesses, and that was roofing. And roofing was an essential worker in almost across the United States. Very few areas were they not able to continue roofing through COVID, because that is what protects every single building. But they also knew that as people were losing jobs, as things were happening during COVID, we needed to continue to grow the skilled labor. So they had been filling the skills gap and providing jobs through education, through career boards, working with different associations and recruitment with all of these associations throughout COVID, helping to bring more people into construction, into roofing, and being able to have a really good career. They also have been encouraging short-term relief, and this is through the advocacy that they do in DC and on a state level. All of these groups work together as one voice to bring the needs of the roofing industry and construction overall to our legislators through advocacy. And they continued to encourage short-term relief for long-term success, taking care of our business owners, taking care of our owners, to make sure that everybody can come out of this as well as they can. And finally, to expand tax policies that work. These are the types of things that this group brought together. Not too many people know about this, but it was so essential and really created a lot of what happened throughout 2020. Other influencing factors included when you're looking at the factors influencing the commercial roofing, both in 2020 and in 2021, was really looking at how many, what the growth was going to look like. And so as you put that together, they see, and this is kind of across all different areas. It's really interesting to see this, but everyone sees 0.6% annually decrease in commercial roofing. and that's through 2024. It's going to be interesting to see if this actually happens. When you talk to analysts, and you'll see through some of the data that they really see, due to other indicators like what happened with COVID-19 and remote workers and the buildings, and also a very interesting fact of, for many of us, we went through the Great Recession. We saw that roofs were not taken care of, they were not handled, but what happened is in 2016 through 2018, a number of those roofs were replaced or were elevated, and huge amounts of activity commercially that went on during those years. And so again, as people are looking at this, with that combination of all of the roofs that were fixed and were replaced through 16 to 18, combined with the COVID now having so many office spaces and just overall commercial buildings maybe not being as used, definitely not used in 2020 as they worked remotely, but with a very good chance that they're going to be repurposed going forward, that this could cause that 0.6% decrease in commercial roofing. It's to be seen. As you also look at residential, which again, as I noted before, I think is very important that we really kind of take a look at that, because from the many years of I working at Carlisle, working at Malarkey, everything we're hearing through Roofers Coffee Shop, what we see is that residential does influence commercial and vice versa. So as one gets big, sometimes the other ones will go down, but there's definitely a give and take between. And also, as we talked about earlier, that need for labor. How is that pulling between those two different areas? And so what we're seeing, and this is again from many research areas, including Ed Zalensky, who is an analyst of construction, he is looking at residential roofing is projected to rise 0.7% per year to reach 164.1 million squares in 2024. So again, we're seeing this across the board with different people looking at the growth in residential, and with COVID, it was like a skyrocket to bring that in. The other thing besides COVID that has really influenced that residential growth is a large percentage of residential roofs that are at the end of their lifespan. You also see, along with that old roofs, you are seeing huge weather events. As we know right now, looking at the snow that's coming down, the freezing temperatures throughout the country, those deteriorate roofs even faster. So we are seeing that combination of older roofs, extreme weather, that is starting to cause a need for replacements. And then homeowners have some more money. Due to COVID, many of them didn't go on vacations, they're in their homes, they are saving money. So now is the time, and low interest rates, that they want to invest back into that property. So as you're looking at the roofing market, really that combination of contractors who are doing both is probably going to be a great thing for individual companies to have a strong foothold both in commercial and residential. But you're also going to see an increase in residential roofing contractors who probably are going to be pulling labor and possibly materials and supplies, which are also at a loss, into that residential factor, which will influence the commercial industry. So with that, we're going to take another little breakout, and have another poll. And in this poll, we would love to ask, with unemployment equaling 2015 rates currently, do you still see a labor shortage in construction? So do you see a labor shortage in your business? We are definitely, Roofers Coffee Shop has a full classified section, and we're very proud to be able to help recruit and people into the roofing industry. We work with National Women in Roofing on that, and we also do a lot of it ourselves. And we definitely see a very robust market looking for labor. Our classified ads are continually, we have people coming in, looking for jobs, looking for labor. And so from our standpoint, we definitely are seeing the need for labor. But it'll be interesting now to see these polls and see what you're seeing out there. Yes, 74%. I'm not surprised at all. This has been a topic for many years. It's not going to go away, and there are many reasons for this where we're at right now. As we look at this and as we really talk about labor, the labor shortages is all about an aging demographic. So we have many people who are in their 40s and 50s who are aging out, who just can't work on the roof, who can't, you know, they may be moving into supervision or management or estimating and sales, but when it comes to actually doing the work on the roof, that craft, they are aging out. And so we are seeing that not just in roofing, but across the board in construction overall. So this isn't something that just happened because of COVID. This is something that's been happening for years. And really, we saw a worsening of that effect during the Great Recession. I mean, during the Great Recession, we had so many people who had to change jobs, who were following other jobs, who left. I know in Central Oregon, the housing, building, everything just bottomed out. And so people moved. They moved into other areas where there were still construction jobs, leaving huge deficits in employment and skilled labor. We are continuing to see that. So aging out, people who have moved and gone into different places because of the recession, and then you bring the pandemic, the COVID of 2020. And that really brought all of these labor issues even more. You would think with a high of 16% unemployment that we would have tons of people out there who could work in construction. But the problem was they weren't in a position, either through training, through education, through understanding or even thinking about those kind of careers, because we had not done as much recruitment or education as we needed to. Although I can tell you the roofing industry has had this as a prime focus for at least the last 5 years, if not longer, of really trying to get to that next generation and bringing in more people. But as of October 2020, unemployment in the construction sector was roughly 6.8%, which was down from that 16.6% in April. But we are still seeing a hard time of bringing people into the industry. And like I said, many associations within the industry are already working on this, and I have seen those changes, and I have seen a higher level of young people interested in what is going on. Just look at the young professional groups out there, and you're starting to see that change. You're seeing that change also in vocational schools and people who are really learning the craft and becoming craftsmen and women within roofing. It's an exciting time. But as I said before, when you really look at the unemployment, this is where we were talking about. In January 2015, we were at the same levels of 6.6% as we are now. But yet we were way down before the pandemic. And the thing that's really interesting about that is when you look at this chart, and this comes from the U.S. Labor Bureau, where you are really looking at over, since 2007, we have had high levels of unemployed, right? And that was through the Great Recession and what we were going through. But when you look at the job openings, they just kept creeping up until 2018, we actually had more job openings than unemployed. This is really what made that change in understanding the need for skilled labor, for bringing more people in, for helping people understand what a great career roofing and construction is. And so then as you get into the pandemic, you see it spike, but it's coming down quickly, where we are going to be experiencing these same problems. And so as you're looking at 2021 and really trending that way, this is where you can see that you have the jobs versus construction volume. And you can see that the jobs are going to be much higher than the actual people or the volume that we can do. And then you also can see here, and this again is from Ed Zarensky, who is with Construction Jobs He does an analysis of the construction industry on a regular basis, and really interesting information. But this is where they are predicting that the commercial construction will be going down. So again, how does this affect roofing? It's going to affect it, even though there is some backlog that we're seeing, but with those commercial buildings, it's going to be harder. And then residential, again, pulling labor, skilled labor into that realm as they continue to increase. So some interesting numbers. I don't see anything here that is that drastic. It's just, and it really goes back to what you all did in that poll, saying you see it to be about the same or a little bit better. And that's really kind of what we're seeing. Maybe a little bit downturn in commercial, but for roofing, maybe not. And so we want to see some of the other factors that we talked about besides all these great COVID things, but what are some of the other factors that are influencing your business? So we would like to have a poll. Have you experienced slowdowns due to material shortages? Yes or no? And it's going to be interesting because, you know, we work at Roofers Coffee Shop, we work with many different manufacturers, and obviously thousands of contractors every single day. And so what we're seeing is that there are allocations, and because of the allocations, we are seeing pricing going up. But what we're really interested in, is it affecting you? And how is that working in your business? Because some people, certain parts of the country, we're hearing that it's okay, but a majority, we're hearing there is definitely price increases and material shortages. So what do you have to say for that? And it is an astounding yes, 71%. You are right on, because that is exactly 71% in our poll, and 71% is what came out of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Again, their study, their Q4 report, 71% of contractors face at least one material shortage. We didn't plan that. That just worked out perfect. But really what we're seeing in roofing, and I think overall, is wood and lumber. 31% of contractors reported material shortages. We are hearing that every single day. Wood, plywood, that it is just, you have to order it early for your jobs, and you have to be very careful because the prices are increasing, so you have to have the clauses in your contracts. We're seeing that over and over again. Also, metal. And we are seeing it in fasteners, we're seeing it in steel, we're seeing it in decking, so that they're definitely, in fact, we just had an article on Roofers Coffee Shop about pricing and about the increases that are going on. And those are the areas that really are starting to hit people. The other one that we're seeing in roofing is asphalt. And an interesting fact on the asphalt, and this came from United Asphalts sharing this information, is that due to the decrease in jets and in flying and in travel, there's not as much jet fuel that is needed. Thus, it's harder, that has to be stored. It's harder to get down to that, the asphalt, which is the bottom tier of the distillery, and so refining. And so sometimes the effects of COVID and the effects of what are going on are doing it in really strange ways that are messing with supply and demand. We are also having associations who are stepping up along that lines and sharing that, hey, contractors, you need to be careful. I thought this was really interesting coming off the National Association of Home Builders site, that they have an escalation clause for lumber materials on their website. And they're just calling it out. NHB recommends including an escalation clause in contracts that indicates if lumber prices increase by a certain percentage, the customers would be required to pay the extra costs. I know working with companies like Cottney Construction Law that they are talking about this every day with their contractors on what they should be putting into their contracts. So this is something in 2021 that needs to be very much in your awareness as you're looking at this. Talk to your associations, talk to anyone who's helping you with your contracts. This kind of preparedness will help a lot navigate as prices fluctuate, as we know they will, and probably up before down in this coming year. And in fact, just looking, and this is just a random Google, just so to give you an idea, this was a roofing company out there who had noted lumber prices have already jumped over 200% since March 2020. And this week, a shingle manufacturer put out a 4 to 6% increase effective back in August, which was followed by 2 other manufacturers with a 4th on the way. So staying close to your manufacturers, staying close to your distributors, really working with companies like Tremco to understand what's happening in the market and where it's going is going to be so important in 2021. And we're seeing that. We're seeing it also in the numbers that are coming out of the asphalt market. So ARMA puts out a report every quarter on asphalt roofing product shipments. And I found this to be incredibly interesting, not only on supplies and how that's going to affect us with materials and material allocations in 2021, but really, again, reconfirming where we're at potentially with this commercial residential struggle or fight for labor and also material allocations. If you look at shingles in Q4, and this is shipments, this is by square. So in Q4 of 2019, 28 million squares. Q4 2020, 41 million. That is amazing and huge. And what we're really understanding and seeing on that too is the effects of extreme weather and the need for performance products. So we're going to talk more about that, but this is the growth that we're seeing in shingles, which are primarily residential. 44% increase. Year over year, about a 10% change in increase. But when you look at the commercial, the build-up roofing, base ply, mineral cap sheets, or modified bitumen, especially the BUR, quarter over quarter, you're seeing a decline of 20%. Now, this could be a lot of reasons. This could be because we are seeing a decrease in the commercial roofing overall. It could be different products. It also could be influenced by coatings, because the coatings market is definitely building owners who maybe are caught in the middle of COVID, not doing so well with tenants. They may just be coating their roofs and doing basic maintenance and repair, restoration, in order to hold it over until they can totally replace it. So there's a number of things that could be causing this decrease in the built-up roofing market. Modified bit actually up year over year and quarter after quarter, which is also interesting when you think about performance products and how the modified products are gaining a lot of popularity when it comes to the ability, redundancy, sustainability, and long life. So again, interesting numbers. You can look at this a lot of different ways. ARMA is a great resource if you're looking for more information. So moving on, we are interested in another incredibly important topic in 2021 is diversity. So we would like you, we're very curious, how does your diversity look on the side of women? Now we care about all diversity, but this question is just going to be about women. So are you people working in your employment less than 25%, about 50%, or more than 75% are women? As a founder of National Women in Roofing, this is really, we are seeing, and I'm going to show you some numbers, how important this demographic is to the future. When you consider 50% of our population are women, actually it's more like 52%, and we are in a labor shortage, and going into 2021 with what we've already talked about, seeing that we're going to be missing skilled labor, this becomes more important than ever. And I think something that you should be looking at and trending. So let's see how we do. Less than 25% is 70% answer. Yep, it doesn't surprise me. 29% is about 50%, and 2% is more than 75%. Yay for you 2%ers. That is interesting because what this says to me isn't as much about, oh no, there aren't women. It tells me opportunity. And this is the opportunity that I would encourage all of you to look at for 2021. The diversity will make a difference. It's going to make a difference not just in what you're doing for with your employees and your culture and your customers, but it makes a huge difference overall in your ROI. And I'm going to show you how some of that works. And so looking for that diversity and also realizing there's a lot more opportunity in areas that aren't already where you aren't already recruiting. So just to give you kind of a standpoint, from the 2018 and 2019 census, we did increase construction population, as you can see, about 11,000,001 to 11,000,003 in from 2018 to 2019. The number of women increased by about a 0.5 percentage. The Black culture and community increased by about 0.2%. The Asian culture actually went down. The Hispanic or Latino-X or Latinx actually decreased, and white decreased. So, but you can see the opportunity. The opportunity is huge. So even though I'm going to talk a little bit about women because from the standpoint of National Women in Roofing, I really would encourage all of you to look at these stats and look at the communities around you and how much opportunity you may have in your business to not only for customers, but even more importantly for you probably right now is recruiting talent to bring into construction, to bring into roofing. And so as we look at that, one of the stats that just blows me away is what happened during COVID. So 4 times as many women as men dropped out of the labor force in September, roughly 865,000 women compared to 216,000 men. And this is from the American Progress website. You will see this on the national news. You will see these numbers a million different places. But really what it comes down to is the very interesting fact of our culture. So when COVID hit and children started staying home and needed to be homeschooled, that their elderly needed to be taken care of, all of these things happen, households had to look at really how to do this. And in many cases, when partners looked at who made the most money, it was men. So men were making more money, women dropped out and stayed home with their families to help do the homeschooling, to take care of the elderly, to make that happen. So 865,000 women are available out there potentially in 2021, and a lot bigger numbers than that. So as you're looking at this and as you're thinking about trending in 2021, diversity is really not just something that's great for your company image, for your branding, for your culture, but it's also going to be critical for your recruiting efforts and for getting talent into your businesses. And in fact, don't stop with just women. Women of all colors, of all ages, women out there have seen huge numbers in unemployment. Black women at 11%, Latinas at 11%, women 20 to 24, that Gen Z age, 12.2%. These are young women who are coming out of college, looking for jobs, or coming out of vocational schools, coming out of high school. This is important. And women with disabilities. If you look at the true diversity level out there, this is gold. This is opportunity to bring in strong talent and at equitable prices to really create career paths that will help not only your business, but help the employees of your business. And those employment rates right now, you know, so many of us are looking at where we're saying, well, white men at 6.5%, white women at 6.9%. But when we dive deeper, we see the inequality that's going on, and we realize that really this is the time to step up and do something to move your recruiting efforts to a new level. And that's really something that we're seeing on a regular basis with National Women in Roofing and National Roofing Contractors Association working together to really start recruiting into roofing from all different types of people. And what it proves is when you look at some of these reports, like from Forbes, you can really see that by creating leadership that can lead of diversity, you are going to start gaining innovation revenue. What does that mean? Innovation revenue is when you think outside the box, new markets, new products. And right now, with everything that's happening, there is such a need for that. How do we make roofs more resilient? How do we make roofs more energy efficient? How do we bring renewables on there? All of those things are going to need labor that thinks outside the box. That innovation revenue can be, as you can see here, 3% increase, 2.5% increase. These are real dollars and real ROI for your company. So, diversity, a trend. We've already talked about other things. Now let's go on to one of the other big trends that we're going to be seeing in 2021, and that's technology. It's been coming for a while, but COVID really kicked it into gear, let me tell you. So I would love to hear from all of you on your polls on how do you rate your company in using technology for business? Advanced, moderate, or not at all? As part of Roofing Technology Think Tank, RT3, I have just been so honored to be a part of an amazingly progressive thought leaders who are bringing technology into the industry. It's a great place for you to check out to see what's happening out there, rt3thinktank.com. And what we're seeing is with the COVID, and people working remote, we had contractors who were able to switch immediately. They were able to flip over and they were able to have their crews out. Everything was happening. People were working from home because of technology. And then we had roofing companies that weren't able to and lost market share because of a lack of technology. And what we're seeing is a majority are saying, 54% are saying moderate. I love this, 41% are saying advanced. That is awesome. This is a trend that is not going to go away. We have jumped years due to COVID on adoption within the roofing industry for sure, and in construction overall. And in fact, if you look at the Associated General Contractors, when you look at what they're saying the pandemic has put a spotlight, however, on the need for firms to invest in new technology. So even if you are from that poll and you're saying you're moderate, it may be time for new technology, because this is what everything's changing. When you look at the protocols for the COVID and safety, and how are you going to maintain all this information and your investments and your remote workers, everyone is acknowledging this, from general contractors all the way through the trades. And as we really look at it, it's interesting to see the adoption levels, which I think is important for roofing for sure, but overall, because we have a number of, as we talked about diversity and how are we bringing new people into as workers and as in talent into roofing and into the construction industry, you're wanting to bring people who have a thirst to use technology. Use that technology on the roof, use that technology on the job site, not being scared of being monitored with safety equipment. And the Pew Research talks about that Hispanic adults, college graduates, and adults under 50 are especially likely to say the internet has been essential during the coronavirus outbreak. It's the only way we can survive. All these Zoom meetings, what you're on right now, that's how it worked. And in fact, Pew Research has excellent research here that really talks about the adoption. So as you're looking at this, these are the groups that find technology essential or important but not essential or not at all. And so as you look at this, it's really interesting. 30 to 49 at 65% essential. following obviously your younger generation, 18 to 29, 62. But I find that interesting that the 30 to 49 actually ranked a little bit higher. And within ethnicities, you have the Hispanic culture, which at 65%. I thought this was amazing, especially with the growth of Latinx culture within roofing and within construction and the need for technology. This is a great statistic, and really shows the opportunity within our businesses to bring technology and diversity together. You do see, obviously, the being able to get to technology makes a big difference, and then education and where you're located. But again, great numbers that really kind of help you understand the people who are finding that technology is important, and then how do you combine that within the construction world. And from this and from these needs and what we saw really came apps. We have seen all kinds of developments in software, in apps, in applications that are helping us deal with COVID. RT3 just recently had a tech talk that was on monitoring for safety and having the monitor on your equipment, on your vest, and being able to know where you're at, socially distance, and how the workflow on the site is working. So OSHA record keeping and trace tracking, huge. And contractors are dealing with this every single day. How do they stay safe and stay within the regulations and the requirements of OSHA? Time savings. With less labor, we may need to figure out how we can be more productive. And it's not we do have to figure out how to be more productive every single day. That includes digital sign-ins, proximity, where are your workers, where are your crews, and how is that working? And then also tracking prevailing wage. And that's something that's been around for a while, but technology is making a difference there. And finally, like I said, that digital sign-in, and also tracking production and productivity on the job site. Again, in very important things that are happening with our applications that are coming onto the jobs to meet a need that we have. And when you really look at the roofing trends that we're seeing when it comes to technology, one of the hot topics is more powerful ways to generate leads with artificial intelligence. I would recommend that you look at this, because you're going to see a lot of companies that are coming out with ways to better track data, leads, and it's going to be done with using artificial intelligence or machine learning. I can tell you a couple different companies that we're seeing that are just getting ready to launch, one of them coming through RT3, and that is something well worth watching, that trend in 2021. Again, like we talked about before, time saving and tracking on mobile apps, software everywhere, cloud-based. How fast can you move? How fast can you get to where you need to? How can your employees work from anywhere? How can you get crews to where they need to be without being in an office, without being in a specific location? That's not going to go away when the vaccines and when COVID goes away. That's going to only grow more. And that consumer technology transition to business. What does that mean? It means, how are we taking consumer items, Amazon, translators, how are we taking those types of technologies that we as consumers in our homes use every day, and actually looking at them and saying, oh, this would be great for business. So we're seeing that out there also, that need. And finally, drones. And I tell you what, drones have been going on for many years. And so we'll see. It has not gone away, something to watch, and how best to use it on your projects. The technology of performance products, I think, is another area that is going to be incredibly important to watch this year. Cold weather applications. Have we ever seen a time that this is more important? I mean, we have 7 degrees or below zero in Dallas, Texas this week. We have cold weather, -30 up in the Great Plains. We are seeing cold weather, and we have to still be able to take care of our buildings. So looking for those cold weather applications, talking to your manufacturers and your GCs, much like Tremco and WTI, asking them what do they have and how are they doing it. And along that same weather performance, very severe hail. There is now testing for it. There is certification for very severe hail products. Look it up. That could be a whole seminar on its own, but it's very important from a trending point that you read. You'll see many articles on Roofers Coffee Shop about this, because really the redundancy, the resistance, and the performance of roofs is going to become only more important. And as you see that, really a long-lived roof, a long life, means it's more sustainable, and it is going to not have to be torn off. It might be able to be recoated. Those are the kind of things we're hearing from contractors, that they are getting requests from architects, building owners. How do I make my roof last longer? How do I maintain it? How do I do the service that needs to? And then how do I really use that roof acreage for renewable energy, for other opportunities like solar? And I have to tell you, having been in the roofing industry for a long time, solar has been a hot topic for decades. And some people say it'll never happen. Other people are like, it's going to happen. I'm telling you, the next 4 years, watch. This is going to be something that is going to be incredible. And if you are not incorporating some sort of solar into your business, or whether it's renewable energies of wind, just look at that. It is going to take off. In fact, the International Energy Agency forecasts a 43% increase in the capacity for renewable electricity before 2022. That's only a year away. COVID-19 and plus the new administration is going to be driving renewables and driving electricity generating technologies. When you look at what happened in Texas this week, this is going to be front and center, a trend that you need to stay in front of. And then when you look at people like Elon Musk, who continue to dominate, the Tesla solar to roof tiles venture dominates the third quarter of 2020, doubling in profit and almost tripling as they go out into the public. So these are the trends that need a lot of attention. Finally, and I know we went a little bit long, there's just so much to talk about and so much that's out there, but we put all of this into, not all of it, but the top points you will find in this infographic that you can download in the control panel. And it is there for you. You can get it from us at Tremco or Roofers Coffee Shop. We'll have it available across the board. And you will find a lot of this information that we talked about, or that I talked about today, on Roofers Coffee Shop. So rooferscoffeeshop.com is a great place to find information on roofing. If you're doing research, if you're looking for trending, we have it there. And finally, before I turn this back over to the team, we also do have some sales and marketing, different books that are out there that kind of help businesses start incorporating these trends and figuring out how to put it into a plan. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for having me today. This has been an honor, and we might have time maybe for one question. I'm not sure.
All right, well, thank you, Heidi. That was excellent. And then, yeah, feel free to pop your questions in. We will review a few questions. We're probably not going to have time to get to them all. But our first question, how much of the volume would have to be filled by visiting workers?
Well, I think there's a huge amount. In fact, the NRCA is working, Roofing Day is coming up, and thank you for that question, because that was one of the things that I wanted to mention. Roofing Day is our National Advocacy Day in Washington, D.C. It's happening March 23rd and 24th, and it's put on by the National Roofing Contractors Association and their PAC, Roof PAC. And one of their top 3 issues is immigration. And we feel that immigration is critical. It needs to be legal immigration that helps the trades, helps roofing, helps construction overall, fill those gaps. And we see a huge need for it. I really don't have numbers on that, but that's something definitely that you should be watching for, because there will be more numbers coming out on that through National Roofing Contractors Association as they work through the immigration issues on the Hill.
All right, thank you. And you mentioned the industry as a whole is very hesitant to receive the vaccine for COVID. Do you have an overall high-level idea of what is driving the concern in our industry?
Trent Cotney has done a number of really interesting presentations on this, but I think a lot of it is feeling when you're talking about a strong blue collar culture in there, that there is sometimes there's going to be different things that they're worried about, trusting the government, trusting the vaccination that's coming out, really trusting overall that this is something they need and is it real. And so when you look at construction overall with about 47% being hesitant, and I use the word hesitant, that doesn't mean they're not going to use it, but being hesitant, I think it has a lot to do about education. And so the education is going to be so important that companies help educate the workers. Sometimes it might be a language barrier, and there may be concern that way too. So we see that as really being part of our job, is to help bring good, true, transparent information to everyone in roofing and construction overall on why this is important for our society as a whole.
All right, great. So we have time for one last question. What was the company you said to look up regarding technology?
Oh, wonderful. It's called Roofing Technology Think Tank. And the website is rt3thinktank.com. And you can find that on there. You can also find RT3's directory on rooferscoffeeshop.com. If you even just Google Roofing Technology Think Tank, it will come up. Lots of great information, lots of video on what's going on from, like I said, thought leaders within the roofing industry who are working every day to bring more technology into the trade.
All right, great. So it looks like we're at time. So we'll wrap us up. I do want to say thank you so much, Heidi, and thank you everybody for attending today's webinar, 2021 Roofing Industry Insights for the New Normal of Commercial Roofing. In a few days, all attendees will receive a copy of the webinar recording along with the survey on the presentation. We do appreciate if you'd complete the survey and provide your feedback. Your feedback is extremely important to us so that we can further offer educational webinars like today's. We will be offering another Tremco Talks in our upcoming spring webinar series in a few months. Please be sure to check your inbox for a special invitation. On behalf of Tremco Roofing and Building Maintenance, Heidi Ellsworth and Roofers Coffee Shop, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.